Hello everyone, welcome to Task IS. In last class we have discussed some topics under unit research methods in anthropology. We have done about fieldwork tradition in anthropology, distinction between technique, method and methodology, tools of data collection. Here we have completed observation. So today we will try to complete remaining tools of data collection. And last topic is analysis, interpretation and presentation of data. One important notification is that PDF of all ethics as well as anthropology lectures are available in our Telegram channel, and link of this channel is given in description of video, so you can get free PDFs as well. Let's start today's class. Firstly, interview. So we have discussed observation, and second method of data collection is interview. Interview, in simple terms, interview means conversation with a purpose. That means here researcher will have a conversation with object but with a purpose. That means this talk will be very meaningful, and it is a procedure used for collecting data through person to person contact. That means here a direct contact will happen between an interviewer and respondent. And in interview, data collection is done mainly through verbal interaction. Here notice word mainly. That means it can also happen through written method, but mainly it is done through verbal interaction. And views of ideas of other persons can be illustrated through interview. That means when an object is describing his own thoughts, he can even mention thoughts or values of other persons as well, which he knows or which have influence on objects attitude or perception. Now, what are characteristics of interview? Interview is a direct method. Yes, because here is face to face interaction between interviewer and subject. It is mainly through close contact or interaction, including dialogue between two or more persons. Because in interview, firstly researcher try to maintain a good rapport as well as some interaction which is not related with core questions of subject, so that subject can become familiar with scholar and he is comfortable in giving answers. It can be used for all segments of population. Yes, there are no restrictions on interview of any particular section. Past events can be studied through interview, because now you have to correlate. In observation, researcher has option to observe things which he can see or which he can observe, but in interview he can ask anything which is related with past, also other things which an observer may missed out, but a subject can describe in detail through his or her own experiences. Information that could not be collected through survey method or questionnaire can be collected through interview, because here is a direct contact and it gives more flexibility to researcher to ask a vast area of questions. But in questionnaire or in survey there are only a limited set of questions. These are all general points, and even you can correlate these points with your common sense as well, and you can write easily. It is possible to study the events that are not open to observation. Same point I have discussed earlier. Now, interview is also helpful to find out the reactions of different individuals in different situations. That means if an interviewer is taking interview of different persons in a same community, he will also able to find out how same phenomena can be perceived differently by two different individuals of same community. So here individual differences can be understood in more systematic manner. Now, types of interview. Firstly, individual interview, where an interview is confined to an individual informant. And second is group interview. If a group of persons is interviewed for their views or opinions, it is called as group interview. Easily understood from their terms as well. Now, structured interview, or it is called formal interview. The interview based on predetermined based of questions and standardized techniques is called structured interview. Here both, that means questions as well as process of collecting data or analyzing data, all are very structured. That's why it is called as structured interview. But in unstructured interview or informal interview, it allows a greater flexibility in number of methods, sequence of questions, because here researcher will have an option to switch from one question to another if he felt that subject is not much comfortable with any question. Also, there are chances that researcher later find out that sequence of questions is not right, then he can change this sequence in an interview, but it is not possible in case of survey, questionnaire or schedule. So depending upon the situation, more freedom is given to the interviewer to choose the form of questions. That means interview is more flexible. This is core point from these 2-3 lines. Now the interview can also be adjusted to the level and conditions of the respondent. The wording and sequence of questions can be changed keeping view the response. I have discussed it earlier. Now there are 3 important phases of interview. Firstly is rapport building, so that subject will feel comfortable, confident of sharing his or her information, specifically individual or private information. Now second is probing. Probing is an exploratory stage where information is obtained on a remote or unknown topic. That means here exploration to untouched areas also happen. Now recording of the responses. So firstly, researcher will try to make rapport. Secondly, he will try to ask questions from different levels and try to cover different dimensions as well. Now recording of the responses, whatever response an individual will give, that will also be recorded, so that can be later used by another researchers to further pursue research in same project. We have discussed about interview. So positive point is that it provides more flexibility and can be conducted anywhere. But negative part of interview is that here chances of biasness of an researcher in understanding points of that subject are high. So it can suffer from subjectivity. Secondly, you can also write that it is very cost as well as time consuming, because every individual has to be interviewed before writing any conclusion, and this is a cumbersome process. We have completed interview. Now next tool is schedule. So firstly, I will discuss common points between questionnaire and schedule. Both will have a set of questions that an researcher will ask, but difference is that in questionnaire, researcher will distribute these questions to subjects and they will answer by themselves. But in schedule, what a researcher will do, he himself ask questions from subjects and he himself will take answers. That means in questionnaire, subjects fill questionnaire, he will himself give answers, he will understand questions by himself. But in schedule, here researcher's role is important, because here questions will be explained by researchers, then he will himself will write down answers. So in schedule, researcher's role is much more as compared to questionnaire. Now we will discuss in detail. So what is schedule? Schedule provides an opportunity to establish rapport with the respondent because in schedule there is direct contact between researcher as well as subject. Now the researcher has a chance to explain meaning of certain unclear items and the purpose of those questions clearly, because in questionnaire here subject himself will understand what is purpose, but in schedule here work of subject is very simple and here researcher has to put extra efforts. And there are some different types of schedules. Firstly, observation schedule. Here what an examiner will do, he will observe certain things in a case study or in any community and then he will fill questions of schedule. But in document schedule he will collect data from official documents, biographies or records. That means it is more legitimate from legal point of view. Now rating schedule, here researchers set questions from which he will measure attitudes, behavior and opinion in psychological and sociological research. So in rating attitude he will try to rate whether subject have positive attitude, negative attitude or neutral attitude towards any specific event or personality. For example, different people will have different attitudes towards government decision of lockdown. So this can be studied by rating schedule. Now evaluation schedule. These are used to get information about evaluation of institutions or agencies. For example, evaluation about working of government schools. So here purpose of schedule is to evaluate work. So these are some common schedules. Now interview schedule, this is normally used as a synonym of schedules. That means if someone is saying that I will collect data from that specific community by help of schedule tool, that means he will use interview schedule. It contains questions to be asked by researcher and space for recording answers. That means this will be a sheet, here questions will be given and some space for answers will be provided, and here whatever response and subject will given, researchers will write that response in particular place. And household schedule is most common type of schedule which is used in our anthropology discipline. Household schedule means here researcher will ask questions from different members of a household and one by one a large number of households will be covered in this manner. So I hope you have understood about schedule. Now is questionnaire. Basic idea you get from our earlier discussion that questionnaire and schedule will have a set of questions. Now questionnaire is considered heart of social survey because it is main technique of data collection employed in survey method. So even census survey or livestock survey, these surveys have questionnaire as one of the important means of data collection. It is better instrument for obtaining information about personal life, feelings, expectations, future plans. So all these can be covered, because remember, if researcher is collecting data by method of interview, then he will have limited time. But in questionnaire, as questions are already written, so researcher will have more time to ask questions from different fields. And similarly in observation, researcher can observe only those things which he can observe clearly, but remember all phenomena can't be observed. So that's why questionnaire is more wide in scope. Now main characteristics are, here questionnaire will have definite set of questions in definite order and form. Here is systematic compiling of questions, because as serial number increases, depth of answers is increased. Now it is distributed to obtain responses from respondents, and generally questionnaire is employed where data from large number of people have to be gathered, because in schedule there is one limitation that researcher have to explain questions and write answer. That means here researcher have to present everywhere whenever he was writing answers. But in questionnaire, researchers have more scope because he can send questionnaire by help of digital means to a large number of people, and researchers have nothing to do after that. Now respondent is expected to fill a form by herself. That means here subject have to fill his responses by herself. Now most of the question in questionnaire can be classified into factual question, opinion question. Similarly, these can be divided into open-ended questions or closed-ended questions. Now type of questionnaire. Listen, these points are very easy to understand, but when you write answer, then simply what you will write, this is questionnaire and what are its advantages and what are its disadvantages. But this is very simplistic. You have to write 3 or 4 subheadings. So for that you have to take idea that what are the type of questionnaire, and these extra points you can draw by help of diagram also, so that your answer will have diagrammatic representation also, that will look more attractive. Now type of questionnaire. Firstly is structured questionnaire. In structured questionnaire, questions are prepared in advance. That means preparation is done early and spontaneity of questions will be eliminated. That's why it will have more reliability of questions, and here same wording and same order of questions is maintained throughout the questionnaires that will be circulated between different people. Now unstructured questions. Here questions are not structured in advance. Questions are adjusted according to needs of situation. For example, if researcher is collecting data from rural people, so he will try to manipulate language or try to ask questions which are particularly specific to those peoples. For example, more questions from agriculture. So these are more unstructured questions. It will provide maximum flexibility to collect as much information as possible. Now mixed questionnaire. A partly structured and partly unstructured questionnaire is called mixed questionnaire. Now pictorial questionnaire. Here questions or answers will have some pictorial content as well. For example, if in a very simple society researcher is asking about number of family members, then he can use this pictorial representation to show that there are 2-person, 3-person or 4-person in a family. He can draw here human figures. So this can be one of the method, because maybe those simple peoples don't know about counting. Now characteristics of good questionnaire. Here size of questions should be small and it should look attractive. That means subject should not feel bored, and it should be printed legibly and should have a good layout. These are very generalized points. Now item wise classification should be done in a questionnaire that will help researcher later in analysis of those points. Now emotional, embarrassing or threatening questions should be avoided, because if you are asking a person regarding sexual harassment case with that person, so repetition of those questions will again put a emotional as well as psychological stress on that individual. It's like repetition of that trauma on that person. So questions must be asked according to level of respondent. That means you should ask very simplistic question from a child and then more depth questions from a mature individual. Never ask 2 or more questions at a time, because it will create confusion. Questions should be well arranged to enable tabulation and analysis. So this is important for an researcher's further work on that topic. Now there should be instructions, so that even questionnaire should be self-explanatory, because here subject has to understand those questions. So here focus should be on maintaining systematic organization, simple language, so that it is very easy for subject to understand and answer those questions. Now what are merits of questionnaire? Coverage could be large, because here there is no need of researchers to be present at all time. It would be less expensive, because Even through digital means, questionnaire can be distributed to a large number of people. It is easy to plan, construct, and administer as compared to other methods like interview, where you have to make arrangement for sitting, etc. Now we can keep the anonymity of respondent. Yeah, because in interview, subject have to disclose his identity directly or indirectly. But in questionnaire, anonymity can be maintained. Similarly, in schedule, there is direct interaction between researcher and subject, so there are again chances of release of his identity. Now we can use it as a primary tool for conducting in-depth study later. That means by questionnaire, a general idea of view of that society can be taken, and later specific methods like case study or interview can be conducted, so that efficiency as well as large number of people can be covered in a particular project. Now, what are demerits of questionnaire? It could not be effectively used to collect information from non-literate or less educated persons. Yeah, of course, that time researcher will not be there to explain, and these non-literate or non-educated people will not be able to contribute. It could not be ensure adequate response rate, because we have seen, or even personally we have done these things, that when we are busy and someone asking to give our responses, then we generally ignore that pamphlet or questionnaire, because we feel that what benefits we will get by filling this. So this is another issue. Now, chances that a respondent misinterpret a question, yeah, this can happen. Now, questionnaire not stable for collecting private or controversial information, because in other methods like interview, there are chances that researchers can handle those controversial situations, those sensitive information, and he can make subject feel comfortable on those occasions. But in questionnaire, there is no direct contact between researcher and subject, and that's why even subjects will avoid giving reply of those questions. Effect of lack of rapport on data collections through questionnaire. That means sometimes in other methods like questionnaire or schedule, subjects will give answers because they know that this is a very well known, well read or scholar person, and this study will be helpful for us later. But if they don't know whether an scholarly person is collecting information or another person X is collecting information which can be a violation of their privacy rights, so now this lack of rapport building will have negative effect on response rate of questionnaire. Now, schedule versus questionnaire, this is important. Firstly, in schedule there is a direct contact, but in questionnaire there is indirect contact. And here process is that researcher will explain questions and then write down responses accordingly, but here subjects will have to understand questions and then give responses by himself only. What are positive of schedule? Here response rate will be high, here efficiency will be high, because here subject will know what is being asked. But in questionnaire, positive points is that a large number of people can be covered in a small interval of time, and it is very less expensive and very speedy method. Now, negative of schedules are time consuming and can be employed to collect small data. Now, negative point is that of questionnaire, response rate can be low. Again, efficiency is also questionable, because here researcher don't know subject will understood question or not. But you can conclude that both will have their own advantages, and in suggestion you can write that firstly questionnaire can be done so that a large population can be covered. After that schedule can be employed so that efficiency of data collection as well as reliability of data collection can be increased. Now next is case study. So case study means intensive study of a case. It is method of qualitative analysis. Qualitative, that means here not only quantity, that is more number of subjects is covered. This is only one aspect in quantitative, but in qualitative here focus will be on in-depth analysis, more analytical questions, so that qualitative analysis can be done by case study. It is extensively used in psychology, education, sociology, anthropology, economics, political science and other disciplines. So now you have idea that these methods of data collection is used in large number of disciplines. But in observation we have discussed about uncontrolled observation, in which we discuss about participant observations and non-participant observation. So that participant observation, that part is specifically important for our discipline, because that provides base for fieldwork studies. In case studies, it aims to obtain a complete and detailed account of a social phenomena or a social unit. That means in case study focus will be on comprehensive and detailed study of a social unit, and this social unit can be a person, can be a family, can be members of a organization, can be a community, institution or any event. That means in case study social unit can be you and members of your family or students in any institution. Those are again part of case study. Now essential characteristics of case study are: firstly, it is very intensive, comprehensive and detailed study of a social unit. It helps to understand personal as well as hidden dimensions of human life, because it is very detailed, and generally questions are asked from history or past events of an individual, again his personal opinion, his views on any event. So all this intensive study make them collect some hidden part. For example, attitude, perception, these parts sometimes can't be collected from questionnaire or schedule, because they have a organized set of questions. But in case study, more flexibility in asking very detailed question. The case study method helps retaining the holistic and meaningful characteristics of real life events, such as individual life cycles, small group behaviors, etc. And you can relate it with Margaret Mead's study of Samoan girls. There she has used case study methods. That's why she was able to understand adolescent behavior of those girls. So now you can collect other chapters as well. Now in case study, information may be collected from various sources. It wants to say that case study is a method and subject will be in front of you. Now you can use a large number of means to collect information. For example, firstly you can collect information by schedule. You will have some systematic organized information. After that you can ask some stories from her life or his life, and so that you will employ a different number of methods to collect information. Now important sources of collecting these data or important techniques are life histories, personal documents, letters, records, biography, information obtained through interviews, observation, etc. Now what are advantages of case study? A case study helps to probe in-depth analysis. That means detailed study is possible. Secondly, it is stable for collecting data pertaining to sensitive areas of a social phenomena. For example, sexual behavior of adolescent in Samoan girls. So case study can be employed in those areas as well. It helps to collect details regarding diverse habits, traits, qualities of a unit under investigation. Now data obtained through case study is useful for formulation of hypothesis and provide clues for further research. Hypothesis means during study or investigation, and researcher will make hypothesis. For example, if researcher is working on coronavirus and its impact on social economic life of individual. So one hypothesis can be coronavirus has negative relation with economic development. So this is hypothesis, but with research, with experiments, with data collection and proof, now researcher have to prove or disprove this hypothesis, and after that he will give conclusion for his study. So you can correlate these points. Now limitations of case study. Case study records could be open to errors due to faulty selection of case. That means here sample can be wrongly chosen. For example, if out of 125 students you have to choose only 25 students for study under case study method, then how would you ensure that you have chosen best students from these 125 students? And similarly, on Margaret Mead study, questions were raised on sample collection accuracy of her study. Now it is very difficult to draw generalizations on the basis of few cases. Firstly, remember that in case study only a small sample can be studied, and after analysis of that sample generalizations will be made. But it is questionable that by study of only 25 students you will make generalization for 125 or 500 students. So this generalization is good because it is neglecting diversity or variations, and studying of variations is hallmark of our discipline. Now no uniform and standardized system has been developed for recording case history. This is arguing that different scholars use different means to collect information and there is no systematic one method. But again it raises questions why only one particular technique, for example observation or schedule, is employed by one scholar. Now investigations biasness might distort quality of case study. It wants to say that in questionnaire or in schedule there are less chances of scholars or researchers biasness impact on study, because that will have a determined set of questions and responses of subjects will be collected accordingly. But case study provide flexibility, and with flexibility comes biasness. For example, if an researcher has observed that person X is working on field, and he will try to ask more questions about agriculture from that person A, but he may not aware that due to coronavirus or lockdown that person A is earlier working in construction sector and now only from last 10 days he is working in agriculture. So probably that person individual A will have very less information regarding agriculture, but here biasness of researcher will come because he worked according to his own experiences. Now case study is time consuming and costly in certain areas because you have to study in depth any subjects, and that is very time consuming. Now steps of a case study, how to proceed in a case study. Select a case or problem for investigation. Now determine status of unit of phenomena under study. That means you have to analyze what is current status of any situation or development of any individual and then proceed with your study. Formulate a hypothesis. For example, nutrients doesn't have any impact on disease frequency in children. So you have make this hypothesis and then collect data and prove or disprove this hypothesis. Collect data using appropriate methods. Now analysis of data by comparing or reviewing with past studies. Now arrive at conclusions. These are some of the steps of case study. Generally these are not asked in UPSC, but what you can do, everyone will write about case study, its advantages, disadvantages. So in paper you can write or draw an chart to show process of case study. That will give you 1 or 2 extra marks, and this is what is needed in UPSC. Now genealogical method. So what is genealogy? It is study of one's ancestor, parents, grandparents, and greater grandparents and so on. That means genealogy is like a tree method where one's relation with parents, grandparents, or children, etc. will be studied. For example, this person is ego. Ego is like center of our research, and we will determine relationship of ego with other persons. So we will take ego as a reference to study relationship. So firstly, ego's son or daughter, and then mother, father, grandfather, all this will be studied in genealogy. So genealogical method was originally developed by W.H. Rivers during Torres Strait expedition of 1898-99. This is important fact, and you can remember that. Now later it became one of the standard procedures in ethnographic study of anthropology. Primary aim of genealogical method is analysis of social organization, that means interpersonal relationship and living arrangements between members of a society. Because by genealogy, what an researcher came to know that what is relationship between individual A and individual C. And secondly, by this diagram, it also can be concluded that inheritance is traced from patrilineal line or matrilineal line. For example, this is for male and this is for female. Remember this. So, for example, if any diagram, it is shown that inheritance is transferred from a mother to daughter and not from father to son. This is not, but this is present, then this is concluded that this is a matrilineal society. Now method required extensive interviewing of individuals in order to record their descent, succession and inheritance. So generally it use interview as a technique to collect information regarding their descent. Here succession or inheritance means how property is transferred from one generation to second generation, from maternal side or paternal side or both. Now descent, simply descent means kinship relations of an individual through blood. We will discuss them in detail later. So descent shows that how by blood relationships an individual is related with another individuals. For example, A, B and C. So here C is grandson of A. So they are related by blood relationship. Now genealogical method is very much helpful in studying kinship relationship, in understanding social structure or network of relationship among individuals. It is done through collection of demographic as well as social data. Demographic data includes what is relationship between different individuals, what is size of family, what are age numbers of different members, and social data includes economic data, how land is transferred between family members, and other social data can be who are married persons in family, etc. And by charting pedigree and mapping residential details. So pedigree means this diagram where it is shown that how this father is connected with grandpa or grandma by these lines. So pedigree is diagrammatic representation of blood relationships or alliance relationship, that means marriage relationship. In the studies of migration and to trace out early migrants, genealogical methods is found very useful. So migration issues, so now you can correlate it with CAA, Constitutional Amendment by Citizenship Amendment Act or NRC. These are current issues in our country and these are related with migration, and in migration genealogical method can be used to trace whether a particular individual or community is belonging to one country or not. Now, internationally accepted simple set of kinship symbols are used in anthropology. For example, this is for male, this is for female, and line between them shows that they are married couple. So these are symbols used in drawing pedigree. So we have done genealogy method. Now next thing is what is positive points of genealogy. So what are advantages? Firstly, it have application in emerging diverse areas, for example migration, solving paternity disputes, and solving cases of inheritance. So first part is this. Secondly, whether there are some documents available or not, genealogy can be applied. So it have another application as well. Now what are negative points? It is based on person's own memory, person's own experiences, and sometimes you can't rely on data provided by any subjects. That means here question of reliability of data is again asked. Secondly, although genealogy method have many advantages, many applications, but if genealogy data is not supplemented by other official documents, it can't be solely a proof for solving legal disputes. So there are some concerns, some issues still present, although it have diverse applications. So next is life history. So as clearly indicated by word life history, it means here researcher will take information regarding life history of that particular subject, and this can be collected by written means or by oral means. So life history can be studied by written documents or can be orally. So life history in sociological and anthropological research, life history is overall picture of informant's or interviewer's life. Purpose of the interview is to able to describe what it is like to do this particular person, that is one being interviewed. That means after studying one's life history, here researcher will be able to conclude that what will be futuristic ideas of that subject, because now he had understood life history or attitude, perception or core values of that particular subject. So in this method, interviewer allows the subject to tell the story of their life on their own terms. That means here interview will have an extra benefit, because here subject will tell about his own experiences along with his own attitudes, his own perceptions, as opposed to those of the researcher, because here biasness level is decreased, because someone is telling about personal experiences, that what I have done is this and what I liked was that. So here researchers don't have to judge his actions, because here subject will tell why I have chosen this and why I have done this. So it is common practice to begin the interview with the subject's early childhood and then proceeds chronologically to come to present situation. So what is importance of life history as a tool collection of data? So life history has spatial significance in highly technological, fast-paced, complex world. As we have become more isolated from one another, life history offers a means of putting us back in touch with others, because when someone is telling his or her own story, then researcher will get and deep insight into another's life. It recognizes the intimacy results from listening to and telling stories. So this is very simple, and you can take out some points to write some of benefits and drawbacks. Now what is oral history? Life history and oral history are very much similar. So oral historian records spoken information. Only difference is how information is collected between oral and life history, because in life history you can even use written methods as well, but in oral history, as name tells, only spoken information is gathered from people's memories. Collect first person information deemed historically significant by those recording it, and preserve the recorded interview information and make it accessible to others. It simply means you have to collect information orally, and this will be a first hand information because here subject is giving information directly to researcher. So this is first hand or direct data collection, and this is considered very significant, and even this oral information can be recorded for future researches even in next decade or later, so on. So these interviews are conducted with people who participated in it, observe past events, and whose memories and perception of these are to be preserved as record for future generation. Now you can connect with current, that someone living in during this pandemic and staying home, so experiences of those people can be discussed later after 50 years or 60 years, because that time their experiences will be collected as a data by oral histories of current generation. Now knowledge presented by oral history is unique because it shares the tactic, perspective, thoughts, opinions, and understanding of the interviewee in its primary form. So that means here thoughts, perspective, opinions, all these can be collected, which are generally not possible in observation or questionnaire. Now primitive societies have long relied on oral tradition to preserve a record of the past in the absence of written stories. So you can easily understand that this oral history component has specifically importance in our discipline, because our discipline gives special importance to simple or primitive societies, and these societies will not have written records. So to study their past, to study their folk culture, we have to rely on their oral traditions, and that's why this oral history has special importance. The nature of memory, both individual and community, is a much a part of practice of oral history. So here oral history can be described by individual as well as by community members. Now what are merits? Firstly, oral source identify intangibles. Tangible means something existing in physical form, so intangible means not existing in physical form. So oral sources identify intangible such as atmosphere, insights into character, clarifications to points made briefly in point. So here depth of different dimensions can be increased. Now oral history can also indicate lifestyle, dialect, terminology, customs that are no longer important or that are no longer existing. Now successful oral history enhances its written counterpart. That means if there are oral history documents are present, then that can complement, that can supplement to written counterpart. For example, if tribal people are giving some data regarding 50 or 60 years old, and that time their tribal leader have some contact with any prominent king or princess, so data, that is written data from those king as well as oral history part of this tribal people can be used to find out some matches, some mismatches, and to gain some correct information regarding that 50 to 60 years old history. So these are some of the techniques to collect information. Now what are demerits? Firstly, person being interviewed may not accurately recall factual information. So this generally happen, even sometimes we forgot that what are the places we have seen during our last trip, but we have some rough idea, so that means we have less accuracy, such as names or dates. These can be easily clear off from our mind. There also exists a preconceived notion that oral history is less reliable than written records, because there is misconception that written history is written by some well-known persons, so this is very valuable and we have to preserve it. But regarding oral history, which is mostly dominated by simple societies, that's why another point again raised on its reliability. Now written sources materials are different in execution of information, and that they may have additional sources. That means again focus on written documents, and this excessive focus on written part led to neglect of oral part. So from points of merits and demerits you can write in life history also. Now sources of information. Primary sources refers to information collected first hand from such sources as historical documents, literary texts, artistic works, experiments, survey, interview, etc. That means here researcher is directly collecting information. Thus articles where author is describing their own experiments would be considered as a primary source. These can include personal papers, include diaries which an researcher made during his field visit, journals, correspondence, legal notices, records for births, death, divorce, marriages, all are primary source of information. And even observation, interview or oral history, these are some of direct sources. Now secondary sources refers to another person's second hand account of something, such as in a literature review. So if someone has experience on writing projects, thesis, then he must know that in literature review an individual have to first study another thinkers, another scholars work on that particular project, and then gain information about that particular project topic, and then start his or her personal project work. So here what an individual is doing, he is studying literature which is written by another. So this is secondary source. Thus an experiment that is described by someone other than researcher would be considered as a secondary source. Accounts found in newspapers, radio, television about research findings would be considered as a secondary sources. For example, if someone is finding that today an article written by this scholar is good, so what he has done, he is not collecting information about that particular society directly, but he is using data from an editorial which is written by another person on that particular community. That means he is using second hand information. So these are some of the secondary sources. So primary and secondary sources, what we mean by it, what are examples we have discussed, but now we have to discuss what are merits of primary over secondary, similarly demerits or merits of secondary over primary. So firstly, what are merits of primary information? Firstly is reliability, because here scholar is personally involved in data collection, so that's why reliability is high. Secondly, he can collect information which is more suited to his project, thesis, etc., so that he will have information which is more suited for his work. So that means accurate or efficient data collection. Now what are negatives of primary data collection? Firstly, every time it is not possible to collect data. For example, war times or pandemic times. So during this time it is not possible for scholars or researchers to go out and take field data. So here it is more appropriate to use secondary data. Secondly, it is not possible to collect first hand information for a large scale. That means here information collection will be less if time is less. So less coverage of people. Now what are positives of secondary data collection? Firstly, it will provide a large number of people. That means coverage will be more, because here data will be collected by a large number of other scholars. So any researcher can use data from different people. and secondly it will be less time consuming, less cost for an particular researcher. But there are some negatives. Firstly, reliability question, because here data is not collected by first hand. Someone have collected data for its own purpose. For example, some administrator or traveler has some idea regarding a particular community, but when a researcher will collect data from a traveler for his project, then of course that will have inefficient data, because purpose of traveler is different and purpose of that researcher is different. So reliability question is again a question mark. Secondly, what kind of method and researcher have used to collect data. For example, if you consider Margaret Mead's study of Samoan girls, so questions are raised on accuracy of sample collection, what kind of sample that she used, whether that was reliable or not. So someone, if another researcher is depending on data collection by Margaret Mead, then further efficiency of this researcher B or C will be raised, because they will of course depending on data of Margaret Mead, and if Margaret Mead data is questionable, then work of these researcher B and C again also questionable. So we have discussed about primary and secondary data, but in conclusion write that both have their own advantages, and according to situation circumstances both can be employed. For example, secondary data can be used in India where we want to monitor policy or evaluate policy. For example, if success of Swachh Bharat mission is analyzed, then someone can relate hygiene status with disease frequency among children, especially less than 5. So if there are decreased mortality rate of children, then he can conclude that the scheme was successful. So data regarding these disease or these Swachh Bharat mission activities can be collected through secondary sources, because every time it is not possible to collect information for a large number of people. Now analysis, interpretation and presentation of data. So in the beginning data is raw in nature, because here data is very random, but after that it is arranged in a certain format or in a meaningful order. Then this raw data can take in the form of an information which is very logically and systematically arranged. That means if data is collected regarding particular community, then according to questions, then data can be arranged, their responses can be arranged, and in the conclusion analysis of that data can be write down. So this will give a systematic presentation of data collection. So most critical and essential supporting pillar of research is analysis and interpretation. That means how that data can be analyzed to support hypothesis or in against of hypothesis. Interpretation can be defined as a device through which the factors which seems to explain what has been observed by researcher in the course of study can be better understood. That means by interpretation we can learn that what data is telling about any hypothesis. So here this is depending on purely analysis of data. Importance of interpretation. Firstly, interpretation provides a theoretical conception which can serve as a guide for future research work. It enables the researchers to have in-depth knowledge about abstract principle behind their own findings. That means what data they have collected, whether that data is supporting their hypothesis or not, all this idea can be taken. Researcher is able to understand his findings and reasons why this particular data is having negative figures and why this have some positive figures. More understanding and knowledge can be obtained with further research, because its data is very systematic, it have analysis part. So all this can be analyzed by later by a different scholars, and that's why further research can be done on that topic later. provides a very good guidance in the studies relating to the research work. Because if someone is doing research work, firstly what he will do, he will take idea how research paper is written down, how analysis is done. So if some wanted to write project work, he will take some references from that particular research paper. Now what are advantages of anthropological research and what are disadvantages? Firstly, advantages is greater diverse perspective, because our anthropology have a basic structure, that is study of variations and diversity. So by fieldwork study, by research work, it provides a detailed or diverse perspective of different communities, of different people. It complement quantitative methods, because some qualitative aspects like from interview, from oral history or life history, we will get some insights into opinion or perspectives. So these can be collected in our data, and that will provide a more holistic and more detailed information. Now it gain insights through interactive inquiry. Here should be interactive. So when interpretation of data will be done, then focus will be on analysis of data, on interpretation of data, and that will provide a good rational points to work on any hypothesis. And this deep insights during fieldwork and during interpretation will increase accuracy of any research work. Now what are disadvantages of fieldwork or research work in anthropology? So firstly, it requires additional time, labor and skills, specifically in collection of first-hand data or participant observation. These are very time consuming, yields information with limited generalizability. Because our anthropology has specific focus on studying diversity, so although we have discussed data from 25 people or 25 households, but we can't generalize to whole city or whole country, because we want to respect diversity. So although data is collected, but we can't generalize it much. So we have discussed, and now this unit 8 is also completed. Every year 1 or 2 questions are asked from this unit, so please revise them thoroughly. And these are very easy topics. Sometimes I start with easy chapters so that you will have some confidence that I have done all these units. So now I will try to focus on physical as well as archaeological part. So if you like these videos, please like, share and subscribe Task IAS. Thank you.